I won't talk about it.
Yeah. So I had a good conversation with a buyer last week who said to me, prices are falling still, why should I buy now?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple of ways that you could look at this. If the only thing that's important to you is trying to time the real estate market so that you're buying the cheapest house that you possibly can, you probably just need to ask yourself, what's your motivation for buying? Like, are you just trying to make money? Because there's other ways to make money. What you're talking about there is the same thing as people looking at buying a house when the market's going up because they think they're going to make money on it. It's just property speculation, really. What we try and focus on at the moment with people is there's not going to be a lot of people buying right now who are just thinking about capital gains if they think the market's going to continue to go down. But for those who actually have a dream of home ownership, they want to buy a home because they want somewhere to live that's their own. What I would say about right now is that we've probably seen prices drop around 15%. The Reserve Bank have indicated that they are expecting across New Zealand that prices might drop up to 20%. So in terms of missing out on cheaper prices, you've already made most of the gains that you're potentially going to make anyway. So then you ask yourself, okay, well, what's the pricing now? Have I got ability to borrow and service a mortgage at the current levels? If I do, am I willing to put off my home ownership dream for another 5%? That's really the equation that we're talking about for first-time buyers at least. And that 5% could represent, let's say, best case scenario of $50,000, right? Which sounds like a lot of money right now. If your goal is home ownership, you're not necessarily going to be trading properties over the next 2 or 3 years. So that price difference almost becomes slightly irrelevant because let's go back to the capital gains question. On average, people expect homes to increase in value around 5% a year, and that's compounding. So typically people take a 30-year mortgage. You might not be living in a townhouse for 30 years, but you might own it for 10 plus 20 years. 5% compounding over 10 years makes $50,000 look pretty insignificant. And that's $50,000 is a big drop from where we are now. So potentially it could be $5,000, $10,000, $20,000. No one really knows what the market's going to be doing. What we do know though is that at the moment, still a buyer's market. It's a great opportunity for people to be negotiating with developers, with real estate agents for existing and for new builds. If your dream is home ownership, now is a great time to be looking at buying. So what you want to avoid is trying to jump in once prices are starting to go back up, because if you jump in then FOMO will come back into the market. You're going to be competing against other buyers more, especially developers who are looking at releasing new stock, or they might have existing stock that they were before really trying to get rid of. Now they might be more inclined to hold on to it or hold out for higher prices, because if you're looking at prices, seeing them going up, developers are also looking at prices, seeing them going up. So they're more likely to hold on to a stock rather than let it go. So timing the market is challenging. What's happened recently is like pretty unprecedented with the triple CFA rules, interest rates, squeeze on inflation, all sorts of stuff's been happening. I think that when we come out the other side of this, we're going to look back and think the time that we were in now was actually a really awesome opportunity to buy. People were too fixated on what the media was saying about stuff, or worried that they're going to miss out on slightly cheaper prices next month. Imagine in 30 years' time, you might not be living in a townhouse by then. You're hopefully well on through your journey of home ownership. You might have owned a couple of homes. If you own homes for the next 30 years, the amount of capital gains that you'll get over that time just by owning a home is going to make a 5% change in price now seem so insignificant. A $650,000 townhouse at 5% compounding capital gains for the next 30 years is going to be worth something like $2.8, $3 million, $50,000.
More often than not, that question of should I buy now isn't being asked with people with pre-approvals who have actually done all the hard yards. They've been able to get their pre-approval sorted, chat to a broker, at least get up into that point. I spoke to a family last week and it was their dream to get into their first home.
Absolutely.
And there was definitely a couple of speed bumps along the way with getting finance and getting deposit together. But then once they found something that they loved, they saw the finish line, they were able to get it under offer. Asking that question of, is now a good time to buy? Once you get your finances sorted, once you get the green light from the bank, you can at least go shopping. Yeah, sure. Ask the question then.
Yeah.
But I just think by the time they get to that point, the amount of blood, sweat and tears that they might have had to go through with budgeting, triple CFA or whatever it is, they get there and they're like, this is my dream, why would I not make
Why would you wait? Yeah. If your dream is home ownership, absolutely, now's a great time to buy. Lots of stock options at the moment, in terms of new build townhouses through developers. With the market slowing down a bit over the last year, there's quite a few builds that are well through construction or already finished that are still available for sale at off the plan prices. So if you've got pre-approval for 3 to 6 months or whatever, great time to jump in on those. You're going to have the best negotiating power while prices are not going up. You're going to have the least competition because people are still concerned about what's happening with prices. As long as you can service a loan at the moment, it's happy days. And in 30 years' time, you're going to be so stoked that you jumped in when you did, got the best deal, and any variation in price at that point in your journey is going to be kind of irrelevant. And you'll just be stoked that you pulled the trigger sooner rather than later, rather than waiting around worrying what Uncle John's been saying about property prices or whatever they've said in the news that day, the horror stories about whatever.
Just to put it into perspective for a lot of buyers, like for example, when my wife and I looked at our first home in July of 2020, the idea of buying a townhouse was like 2022 completion. But the beauty of the options at the moment is I had someone give me a call yesterday and they were like, hey, do you have anything that's finishing next year? And the reality is that we've got options that you could move into before Christmas.
Great for the purchasers.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Like, I can't think of a time in the last 5 or 6 years where you've had so many options and opportunities to move into a new build in 3 months, in 2 months, in 4 months.
Yeah, awesome.